does it mean to be conquered? It means your language is replaced. Your gods are renamed. Your children are taught to worship the power that defeated their parents. Your art begins to look like the art of someone else. Your dead are buried in foreign rites. And yet, something persists. Something the conquerors cannot touch. Something in the bone and blood and memory that no pharaoh can legislate out of existence. For 500 years, Nubia was a province of Egypt. Its people paid tribute. Its princes sent their sons to the Egyptian court to be educated and to serve as insurance against rebellion. Its gold flowed north. But Nubia was not broken. It was becoming something new.
The occupation of Nubia under Egypt's New Kingdom lasted from roughly 1550 to 1070 BCE. 5 centuries, longer than the entire history of the United States, longer than from Columbus to today. Egypt was not a casual colonizer, it was systematic and thorough. A viceroy of Kush, an Egyptian official bearing the title King's Son of Kush, was appointed to govern the territory. Egyptian temples were constructed throughout Nubia, most prominently at a place called Napata, near a striking flat-topped mountain the Egyptians considered sacred. There, Pharaoh Thutmose III built a great temple to Amun, the supreme god of the Egyptian state, transforming what had been a Nubian landscape into an Egyptian sacred site. In a generation or two, Nubian children grew up hearing Egyptian prayers, in Egyptian schools, bowing to Egyptian gods. And yet, Egyptian art from this same period tells a quietly fascinating story. Nubian nobles depicted in the tomb paintings of Egyptian officials are shown with unmistakably Nubian features: darker skin than the Egyptians themselves, larger earrings, different robes, a distinct and recognizable visual identity. The Egyptians, despite 5 centuries of colonial rule, could see that the Nubians were different, were separate, were other. They never fully blurred the line. Neither did the Nubians.
Around 1200 BCE, the world ended. Not all at once, not in a single catastrophe, but over the course of a few decades, virtually every major civilization around the Eastern Mediterranean either collapsed entirely or was reduced to a shadow of itself. The Hittite Empire, gone. Mycenaean Greece, gone. Egypt, devastated, never to fully recover. The palace economies, the trade networks, the administrative structures that had held the ancient world together for centuries, all of it unraveled in what historians call the Bronze Age collapse. Its precise causes are still debated: drought, famine, mass migration of displaced peoples, internal revolt, disease. Almost certainly some combination of all of them, feeding on each other in a downward spiral that no single kingdom had the strength to stop. For Egypt, it was catastrophic. The great empire fractured. Competing dynasties carved the Nile Valley into rival territories. The central authority that had administered Nubia for 5 centuries simply ceased to function. And in that vacuum, the Nubians stepped forward. By around 1000 BCE, Nubia was effectively independent again, and the center of that independence was the city that had been growing in influence for generations, Napata. The very city where Egypt had built its grandest temple, the very place where they had sought to plant their gods deepest into Nubian soil. The Egyptians had built a temple to Amun at Napata and called the site sacred. They had taught the Nubians to worship Amun, to revere Amun, to build their entire spiritual world around Amun. What they had not anticipated was what would happen when the Nubians made Amun their own.
The Kingdom of Kush, the name given to the new Nubian state that emerged from the collapse of Egyptian authority, established its capital at Napata in the shadow of Jebel Barkal. It was a choice loaded with meaning. Jebel Barkal was, by now, considered the holiest site in Nubia. The Nubians had taken the Egyptian god Amun, introduced by their colonizers, and had transformed him into something of their own. To the Kushites, Amun was not merely an Egyptian deity, he was the supreme god of their kingdom, the divine authority behind their kings, the reason their rulers could claim legitimate sovereignty. This is one of history's most extraordinary reversals. The Egyptians introduced Amun to Nubia as a tool of cultural domination. The Nubians took that tool, reshaped it, and used it to justify their own power that would eventually reach back into Egypt itself. The first Kushite kings we have historical records for appear in the 9th century BCE. A king named Alara consolidated control over Upper Nubia around 785 BCE. His brother Koshta, the Kushite, pushed further. And then came the man who would change everything. His name was Pi.
By 750 BCE, Egypt was a mess. The great unified kingdom that had once stretched from the Mediterranean to the cataracts of Nubia had fractured into a patchwork of competing local rulers. Delta princes squabbled with Theban priests, Libyan warlords controlled vast territories. The concept of a single pharaoh with absolute authority over all of Egypt had become, for a generation, a polite fiction. In Napata, a Kushite king was watching all of this. Pi, sometimes called Pianki, was not an impulsive man. He was patient and deeply religious. His inscriptions reveal a king who prayed before battle, who wept at the poor condition of Egyptian horses he captured, who required the princes who surrendered to him to wash themselves before he would receive them, because he found their impurity offensive to the gods. He was also a formidable military commander. Around 745 BCE, Pi launched his invasion of Egypt. He did not frame it as conquest, he framed it as restoration. The pious king of Kush, chosen by Amun, coming to cleanse the corrupted land of Egypt and return it to proper worship. It was extraordinary political theatre, and it worked. City after city fell or surrendered to Pi. The princes of the Delta, one by one, came to kneel before him. A few resisted and had to be broken by siege and assault. Pi's inscriptions describe the battles in vivid, almost cinematic detail, from the roar of the army to the wailing of women inside besieged walls. When it was over, Pi stood in the ancient temple of Amun at Karnak in Thebes, the most sacred religious site in Egypt, and received the submission of the Egyptian princes. He had done what no Nubian had done before. He had become pharaoh of all Egypt. He was the first king of Egypt's 25th dynasty. He was Nubian, and he went home to Napata. This is the detail that historians most often struggle to explain. Pi conquered Egypt, received its submission, performed its rituals, claimed its throne, and then turned around and went back to Nubia. He did not want Egypt for its territory, he wanted it for its soul. He wanted its temples functioning properly, its gods properly honored, its sacred traditions restored. He was a man of extraordinary religious conviction, and to him, a properly worshipping Egypt was more important than a personally administrated one. His successors would not be so restrained, but Pi had lit the fire. The age of the Black Pharaohs had begun.